Hey, it's Shannon, and we're back with the Also Archives. Today's video is the third video of my series called A Double Shot of Medical School Admissions. So this episode is called The Cream, and we'll cover the interview process and also what happens after the interview as far as waitlists, acceptances, and rejections. So please stay tuned for this video. If you're new to my channel and haven't seen, there are two other episodes that I've done previously in this series called The Coffee and The Sugar. So if you haven't watched those, please go back and watch those videos as well, because they are all kind of in chronological order of the admissions process. And I'm sharing my journey, tips, and tricks that I learned along the way. So please go back and watch those too, and check out some of my other videos about diving and clinical experiences. But right now we'll get ready to start the cream, and please like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. This episode is called The Cream because when you think about it, cream is what you add to the coffee to add flavor to it, to make it lighter, to make it darker, to make it taste like hazelnut or vanilla. Same thing with the medical school's admissions interview. The interview is where you can go into these schools and you can kind of make it your own. You can share what you want to share, put your best face forward. You can customize your approach, and each school as well has a different approach to how they operate their interviews. So this is the time where you can really make or break your application. If you use too much cream in your coffee, you can dilute it and it's not going to be good. If you use too little, then too little cream can make the coffee bitter. Same thing with your interview process. You have to approach these things with confidence and having done your research, because your interview can really make or break your chances of gaining an acceptance. So here I'm going to just discuss some of my main tips and tricks I use to prepare for interviews, and I'm going to start with the MMI format. So for those who don't know, the MMI format is a multiple mini interview format, which means that you will have several interviewers and they'll be very short interviews. So say, for example, 8 interviews, and each interviewer will be in a room, and you will read a question on the door to that room, and you'll have maybe a minute or so to think about your response. And then a bell will ring, and then you're allowed to go inside the room and you have a discussion with your interviewer, and you will answer the question. In my experiences, we had about a minute to read the question, and then we had 5 minutes to discuss this question with the interviewer. And in these types of interviewers, a lot of times they don't allow the interview faculty member to actually respond back to you. So it's more of a one-way conversation. So you have to get used to kind of rambling and really trying to think about all avenues of a specific topic. The way that I was able to prepare for this interview was to look up a lot of ethics-based questions, such as, if you're a physician and you have a patient who comes in who has bruising and might have signs of abuse, but however, her husband is in the room with her, and you want to speak to the wife one-on-one, how would you approach the situation? It'll be questions like that, or questions about what was a time that you experienced adversity and how'd you overcome it? So there are more broad questions or ethical questions that they will ask in the MMI format. So doing a lot of practice questions online will allow you to start to jog your memory and figure out what your stance will be if someone asks you these same questions. The hard part about the MMI is that there is no right answer. So no matter what your response, it's not that it can be wrong, but whatever you say has to make sense. And you have to have thought it through and be able to make a knowledgeable, educated response. But there is no wrong or right answer to any of these questions. So that to me was the most difficult part of the MMI format. And then the speed of it. When you first go in the room, it seems like it's going to take forever. But by the time you start getting your points out, you realize that you run out of time so quick. So to me, that was a challenge because I would always I would never finish my thought that I was trying to make. And then right when I was about to make another point, the bell would ding and we would have to get up and go to the next room. So just really practicing time management and practicing ethical questions with a family member or a friend, I think that will really help with lowering the anxiety about this interview and really getting some good perspectives on some of these ethical type questions. Since I applied during the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, all of my interviews were online, were virtual, which to me is kind of bittersweet because yes, I got to save a lot of money on travel costs and getting hotels and renting cars. But at the same time, I feel like I've missed out on actually experiencing the school firsthand, being able to see what the faculty is like in person and to see the campuses. But overall, I'm grateful that I was able to save a little bit of money throughout the admissions process just by interviews being virtual. But with virtual interviews comes a whole different set of different considerations that had to be made. For me, the main tips that I would give to you all if you have to do virtual interviews is to still take it just as seriously as any interview that will be in person. Also, please provide questions that you want to ask the admissions committees, because even though the time is maybe more constrained and it's all online, you still want to show that you're interested in the school and have researched the faculty or different programs and things that might come up in your interview. For me, most of the schools told me who my interviewers were up front. So what I did was I would research that faculty member or that professor, and I would see what they're involved in, if they're in charge of a certain club or an organization, and I would go in there and make bullet points. So then when it was time for my interview and they asked, do you have any questions for me? I could say, yes, I noticed you were faculty of such and such, and I would love to learn more about that. Or could you tell me something about your research that you are involved in? That really shows that you have put in effort and you've done your work to learn about their school and their involvements. So those would be my 2 big points for virtual interviews. And the third is always be on time. And if they have an info session, please attend that info session as well. Since you don't have a in-person tour, a lot of schools are doing the virtual tours instead, and they have different panel discussions and topic sessions about financial aid and curriculum and things like that. And a lot of times these info sessions are not required as part of your interview, but I would say absolutely attend these events, because this only gives you more time to make your face known, to make your name known, and to interact with these faculty members who are at the end of the day going to be responsible for deciding whether you make it into the school or not. So please just pop up wherever you can, shoot them emails and say thank you after your interviews, thank you for the information sessions, because all these things will go a long way. Even though it's virtual, it will make a difference. I'm sure you all know that once you apply to medical school and you've done your interview, there's really 3 options that can be the result of your application. You can either be accepted to the medical school, you can be waitlisted, or you can be rejected. Of course, acceptance and rejection are kind of self-explanatory, but the waitlist is kind of the gray area in between. So the first time I applied to medical school, I got 1 interview and I was waitlisted from that 1 school. And then I was ultimately rejected. So the wait list means that the school likes your application. There's something about you that interests them, and the wait list means that they can see you being a successful medical student. The only issue is they want to put you on hold and wait and see kind of who else comes through the pipeline. And once they kind of narrow down their choices, their picks, then they might come back and pick you off the list. So you're kind of in this weird reserve pile that they may or may not pull you from at the end of the day. So it's very, very difficult to be put on the wait list. I know for me, I was waitlisted for at least 3 months before I was finally rejected. So it's almost like you're just holding on to a tiny string and hoping that you get something back that's positive. But if this is you and this is your case, just try to keep an open mind, try to stay positive, because you never know if it may work out in your favor. So if you are waitlisted or if you are ultimately rejected, it's not the end of the world. It took me at least 3 months to kind of get over it and realize what I wanted to do, whether or not I wanted to apply again. It was a big overhaul of emotions and thinking whether or not I actually have what it takes. But from a previously rejected applicant to an accepted applicant, I would say that you can absolutely make it if you just keep going and keep putting forth the effort that you need to do to make it in. Sometimes it's just not the right time. Sometimes you don't apply to the right schools. You know, maybe there's schools that weren't on your list that might be a better fit for you. It could be your essays that need to be strengthened. Maybe take some more classes, maybe retake your MCAT. There's things that you can do to improve yourself and make yourself more appealing to medical schools. So please do not get discouraged, or let me put it this way, if you do get discouraged, don't let it keep you from applying again, because there's always another chance. You can always reapply. So just try to improve. Think about it, try to improve in whatever ways you can. And if you decide that that's really what you want to do, medicine's the only thing for you, then I would say put everything out there and try again. It just might be your year, and it may be your time to make it, as it was for me this year. And as I mentioned in previous episodes, I believe it was in the sugar of this series, it's always okay to reach out to medical schools and ask questions, reach out to current students and ask them about their experiences. A lot of schools will be more than happy to write you a letter or send you an email about things that they look for in applicants. So all these things can help guide you in your future application cycles to make sure that you're as strong as you possibly can be when you're trying for a second time. I know all that I want to do as a upcoming medical school student is to help and encourage future students to get to where I am today. So that will be the end of the cream episode. And please check out the coffee and the sugar episodes if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the Also Archives. And I hope that these videos in this series has been useful to you. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I will absolutely get back to you and answer your question very thoroughly. So again, stay tuned for future videos, and thank you for watching.